former president of the Ghana Association of Banks, Al-Hassan Andani, is advising the central bank to maintain the policy rate to encourage growth. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the central bank is meeting this week to review the economy. It is anticipated that a decision will be taken on the policy rate, the rate at which it lends to commercial banks. Now, Mr. Andani, who has been speaking to Joy Business, says maintaining the rate will ensure parity in the financial space.
Has, their inflation targeting is a policy, and therefore they have to reflect what true inflation is. But there are other factors, the demand and use for money. They have to target whatever their inflation is. And if, for example, the high interest rate, which was driven by the high T-bills, was the one driving other factor prices, then of course, they should stick there. Let the T-bill rate drag down the other, and then we'll achieve some kind of parity. But right now there's a big gap between, of course, the T-bill rate of inflation and the Bank of Ghana policy rate. But all of that is in the correction mode. It should over a short period of time, 6 months to a year, you should see some convergence of these rates, hopefully more downward and more, inducing growth in the economy. Yeah.
Now, let me take you to the calls from fund managers. They are saying having over 90% of the funds being invested into government securities and all that, they feel there's the need for some sort of reallocation of funds. We should reinvest it into the private sector to prevent crowding out effect and all that. What do you make of it?
That's the first thing to do. Fund managers, of course, it's just because if we look at the rate of return on various financial assets, it's only reasonable that you think that lending to a private sector should give you a higher financial return. But the risk there is very high. So because risk was high, everybody was crowding into government paper. Now we've suddenly found out that government paper is not as safe as we all thought it was. So now it's proper for us to go and do the first thing, go back to first principles. So your first principle for allocating investable funds was always to your best well-assessed risk asset, which is in the private sector. And then, of course, use government as anchor in terms of just ensuring that you have near cash, you have some liquidity. But, that's supposed to be what investment profile should look like. But because government rates were very high and we all perceived it to be riskless, all the fund managers pushed their monies into those government instruments, and that's what resulted in what you call the crowding out. So the field is leveling out, and the private sector should now begin to see more funds flowing through and more risk assessments, being undertaken to ensure that we have safe and a balanced portfolio.
So we've seen interest rates being on a falling spree for some time now, over subscription and all that. What does this mean to the financial space?
Well, it just means improvements, not just in the government's own debt borrowing burden, but also it will scale back the aggregate lending rate. The T-bill rate is part of the formula that determines lending rates of banks, or what we call the Ghana reference rate. Now, for me, the T-bill rate coming down is just a natural thing to do, because Ghana government could not, offer itself to be paying 35% on its own currency, and therefore it's only appropriate that we determine a rate that is much more sustainable. But I think the downward trend is very welcome. It will drag down the Ghana reference rate and improve the lending rates to enterprises. Otherwise, with a T-bill of 35% and inflation at wherever, and the monetary policy rate, I just could not see how the private sector could borrow and make money out of borrowed funds.
Now, the cost and consequences of the domestic debt exchange program should not deter investors from putting their funds in other areas. Now, that's what the experts are saying, following what appears to be a dip in confidence when it comes to investing, especially in government bonds, following the announcement of a debt exchange program. And now some of the experts who have been speaking to Joy Business say that there are other options to look at. Here's a couple of them who spoke at the Graphic Business Stanbic Bank breakfast meeting earlier in the day.
That we are part of the cause of the problem that we find ourselves in.
We are part of the problem?
Yes, I'm not talking of the government, the problem the government has caused,
okay,
but the problem that we now face, which has led you to ask the question.
How is that?
Because, yes, there may be some reasons, but we place all our bets in one basket. We put all our eggs in one basket. I know you can say we did not have alternatives as investors. The safest investment was what we went for. We didn't have alternatives, but there were near alternatives that we could have put our money into. But as a general observation, we tend to be very, very risk averse in this country.
Well, we're made to believe that government bonds are safe to invest in. At least it's one of the safest places to put your monies.
So who do you blame now? If you believed that story and now you've been caught out, what do you do? But the main principle about investment is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Most people who are in the investment community, most investors, this is a basic principle that they know. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why did we do that? Yes, as I said much earlier, we can say the alternatives were not as attractive as the government bonds or putting your money in government securities. But that does not mean that you should put 100%. We could perhaps have put 70%, 30% elsewhere.
Elsewhere, where?
Well, we'll come to that. Because that's part.
Just to add to what he said, in fact, I agree with him, but probably to an extent, because just last year, towards the end of the year, I got some monies, and then I said to myself, do I put the money into the bonds, the T-bills, or probably change the money into foreign currency and keep them? And then a friend of mine told me that, Eric, change the money into either the USD and keep the money at home. At that time, the exchange rate was $1 to 14.5 Ghana cedis. Okay, so I changed just a few, okay, and then I put the rest of the money into the 91-day treasury bills. Okay, so, but then this morning I was talking to a friend. That money that I probably have at home now is no longer there. If a thief comes to me or breaks into my house and takes the money, I've lost everything. Okay, so I said to myself that yes, it would be better to place it in the T-bills, because at least you are sure, you are guaranteed that you're going to have your interest paid at the end of the 91 days. And even there, you have an option. Either you roll it or you only want the principal and all of that. So at least you have options. But we have come to where we are basically because of the fact that, like I've said earlier on, we haven't managed our debts well. Because if we had done so, I don't think that we would have gotten to where we are, where we now have to go to the IMF.
And the results that we have seen is that people have now lost faith in investment, especially in government bonds. People now have monies and they are thinking, what should I do with these monies? I'll come to your question about where else people can invest. But do you think that the problem is also how government managed this crisis, the communication that went before they started this debt exchange program, you know?
Uses for government. There's been, if you allow me to say, a complete failure of government. There's no doubt about that. What I'm interested in is the individual out there who is now sitting on money and doesn't know what to do with that money. Should he change it to foreign exchange and lose value as my brother here has just done? There are alternatives.
What would you advise?
What I would advise is, and this has to take some doing also, we need to work on this. There's a possibility of ensuring that the stock exchange really works and works very well. We can buy stocks. We can trade in shares. Yes, the stock exchange may not be performing as it should be, Yes, the private sector has a lot more work to do to inspire confidence in the investing public, to put monies into the real sector. That's part of the challenge we have in this country. We are not putting money into the real sector. I'm a business development strategist, so I'm the first to admit that we do have problems in the real sector. But these are problems that we can address. And by the way, anytime you have a challenge like this, the opportunities also jump at you. So now that we are faced with a huge challenge like this, I'm calling on my friends and colleagues in the business development industry to step up to the game. It is time for us to help the private sector, to help companies in the private sector, to put in place the right management systems, to put in place the right financing systems, and attract people like him. They don't have to put their monies under the pillow. They don't have to sit on their monies and say, what do we do with all this? You can invest in the real sector.
All right, so that was Augustine Adongo, business development strategist. Before him, Eric Amposa-Boateng, who is a tax consultant. Let's switch to other news we are following for you. The Ghana Hotels Association says it's still pushing for redress of issues they've raised concerning what they describe as high water tariffs. They also describe it as wrongful. The association petitioned the PRC, and there is a response we want to show you right now on the screen. So the response from the PRC says the Commission wishes to note that in announcing and gazetting the water tariffs, it was clearly indicated that there was restructuring of GWCL's consumer categories to enable the company meet consumer demand, serve them well, and balance the interests of both the company and the consumer. It says this restructuring is ongoing, and your letter will be valuable in improving the process. Also says, notwithstanding the above, the Commission wishes to state that the concerns raised by your association will be assessed and take the necessary action to mitigate the impact of the approved water tariff on your business in subsequent quarterly meetings using the Commission's quarterly tariff adjustment mechanism. We count on your usual cooperation, signed there by the PRC. Well, joining me with a reaction is President of the Ghana Hotels Association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike Jr. Good afternoon to you. So what do you make of this response from the PRC? Are you satisfied?
Hi, Daryl. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Hello, Daryl.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good. Thanks so much for the opportunity once again. And I guess, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so I was just asking of your reaction to the response from the PRC. Are you satisfied?
Right, Daryl, far from that. Far from that. And I must say the PRC's response to our letter is very evasive. And for me, it begs the question, who regulates the regulator? Because if an institution like the PRC announces an 8.3% upward adjustment in water tariffs, publishes it, and goes around to do the exact very opposite of that, and I mean the extreme opposite of that, up to 167% increase. And nobody is talking about it. We haven't heard anything from the sector ministers, tourism, arts and culture, or water and sanitation. In fact, in our letter to the PURC, we copied the Parliamentary Select Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism. We haven't heard anything from them. We also copied the Ghana Tourism Authority. We haven't heard anything from them. So, who regulates the regulator? Because if the regulator, after all the engagement with the stakeholders and deciding on a particular percentage, can go around it, it means the regulator cannot be trusted.
Well, in this letter, it says...
The regulator has demonstrated bad faith, and obviously very interesting.
It says that there's some sort of restructuring going on. I don't know if you're aware about that. And based on that, also says that you should not. I guess it's also saying that you should not expect any change until there is a quarterly review. So maybe sometime next quarter.
Yes, but does it mean that we are casualties of the restructuring of Ghana Water Company Limited's consumer categories? So hotels must be the casualties? In any case, we sent a 3-point petition to the PURC. First of all, revert to the announced 8.3% upward adjustment. Now, from his letter, it means that they have gazetted it. Fine. But that can be taken care of in the next quarter. So why don't you give us the assurance that it's been gazetted already, it cannot be dealt in this quarter, so we will reverse it in the next quarter. That is possible. And again, we also requested that they should restrain their workers or staff from harassing hoteliers in paying the new tariff. But guess what? They are out there doing exactly that. Because we expected that since we have petitioned you on a matter, at least we could calculate that 8.3% increase that you gave and pay that one for now as you resolve the issue. But if you go around demanding that 167% increase that you announced, that is highly insensitive. And I think the PURC must be called to order on this matter.
You asked who regulates the regulator. Well, I'm just wondering, so are there other means that you are seeking to get a resolution to this matter?
There is a PURC that we know, and we are going to respond to their response, and we are also planning to picket at their office.
When are you going to do that?
Well, we need to inform the police. We have 5 days. We will inform the police 5 days ahead, and then we'll do that. So hopefully, if we respond to PURC and we don't get a favorable response, we will inform the police and do that picket.
And just to let our audience appreciate, so initially you were supposed to pay what, 8%? Was that 8% increase?
Yes, Daryl, you recall that there was an increase in August, September.
Okay.
Which started on 1st September. The new one started on 1st February, and it was increased by 8.3%.
But now you're saying you're paying as much as 160.
107%.
That's a huge gap.
How can that be due to restructuring?
Okay, and so yeah, time is of the essence. So what are the implications if? I mean, do you even have time to wait till the next quarter for this to be resolved?
No, we don't. And you see, if the PURC were sensitive to our woes, they would instruct Ghana Water Company that limit your collection of water bills or payments to the 8.3% increase that we announced whilst we address the issue. So that when the water companies start go to the hotel, they were going to look at that 8.3% increase, calculate it, and let's make, have an expectation that, but if you go and say that your new bill, which is 167% over the last one, is what I expect to collect, and if I don't get it, I'm going to close your taps. That is unfair, Daryl. And somebody must step in this matter.
Okay. We'll be waiting for news on when you decide you're going to picket at the PURC. But in the meantime, I want to also ask you about, because we know that the ECG is undertaking an exercise to retrieve revenue from companies that owe it. Are your members in good standing?
I want to believe so. I cannot speak for every member per se in terms of the arrangement they have with ECG, because some are prepaid, some are postpaid. I mean, those on prepaid, I can assure you that there are no issues. The challenge has to do with the postpaid. So, well, maybe let me use this medium to alert and encourage all hoteliers to ensure that they are in good standing as far as the ECG is concerned, because we want regular power supply, and the only way we can get that is through the payment of our bills. And once these things are transparent and open, not like PURC is doing in relation to the water, who has a problem with that?
Thank you so much. We'll be following this story all through. Edward Akanyameke Jr., who is president of the Ghana Hotels Association, joining us with reaction to the response from the PRC to their concerns about high water tariffs. Now, yesterday was marked World Oral Health Day, and Unilever marked it as well. You know that they produce Pepsodent, and so they launched a campaign to encourage people to step up when it comes to oral health. They also introduced the tele-dentistry service, and there's more in this report.
Unilever Ghana PLC held the World Oral Health Day celebration under the theme, "Now everyone can talk to a dentist." Pepsodent Teledentistry Service gives patients the opportunity to seek professional advice on issues related to teeth, gums, and bad breath. Speaking on the sidelines, Category Manager of Oral Care Ghana, Osato Ibuomwam, said the teledentistry service was necessary to give patients easy and affordable access to oral health care.
We have started our teledentistry service. We know that access to dentists is one of the key barriers that prevents people from going to actually visit a dentist. So we have decided to do what we're calling bringing the dentist closer to the consumer. And how we have chosen to do this is to make it possible for consumers to access dental consultation via their mobile devices. So you can have a conversation with a dentist, either digitally or virtually, and you can get information on how to take care of oral health problems that you can deal with at home. Now, if you're not able to do at-home care, then the dentist will recommend that you visit a dental clinic. But we believe that this helps with education, and it also makes it easy for people to come away from that fear of actually talking to a dentist. So when we think about some of the digital apps that we use these days, and the fact that you can subscribe to a lot of programs on your phone, the way teledentistry has been set up is such that you can either scan a QR code or call a toll-free line to reach a dentist. Now, what happens is when you do get to a dentist, the dentist will require a bit of information about yourself, and then you'll then be able to ask your questions or say what your complaint is. The dentist then provides advice for what to do, and if those are things that you can do at home by yourself, the dentist tells that to you. If there are things that you have to go into the dental clinic for, then the dentist will recommend clinics near you so that you can take yourself to go to the clinic to have them resolved.
President of the Ghana Dental Association, Dr. Paapa Pupulampo, said the teledentistry service will improve access to oral health care to avoid costly procedures in the future.
We realize that this campaign of seeing the dentist and talking to a dentist is meant to inspire an attitudinal change that will help you to take part a responsibility of keeping your oral health. And it's also meant to motivate that action of the habit of brushing day and night, and it goes further to sustain that good habit for you to have a good health. With Pepsodent on the block, we introduced a teledentistry, a good move to augment the efforts to be able to keep your oral health succinct and on point.
The initiative is geared towards encouraging the public to maintain a good oral hygiene.
And next, your money tip on Money Lab.
Hi there, my name is Benjamin Opokuware from Alliance Life Insurance. Welcome you again to Money Lab. Previously, we talked about what insurance claim is. On this episode, we'll be talking about the relevance of insurance claim. There are some unexpected expenses that are bound to happen, like medical bills, financial education, or even funeral services. These expenses can cause so much stress to us. So what insurance claims does for us is to provide relief in such unfortunate events. The money that the insurance company will pay you will cover the medical bills. It can replace your income that you may have lost because you could not go to work because of the illness. The claim will serve as a protection against financial losses. Thank you for joining Money Lab.
There is more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. The day's latest from there, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Daryl. Thanks for watching. We will be back same time tomorrow.